So I think I pretty vividly remember my first time meeting Roger. We were introduced through a mutual friend. I was actually just leaving this large company, Symantec, as an executive, wanted to go into the startup world, was trying to meet investors, and had the chance to meet Roger, I think at a little diner in Portola Valley on Alpine Road, and then kind of rekindled a couple times after that, but I remember our first meeting very well.
It was something where Nick was introduced to me as this really young, great up-and-coming CEO of Silicon Valley. I said, all right, I got to meet this guy. He sounds great. And then our relationship developed from there, where we ended up both joining this CEO group called YPO at the same time. And we were in the same forum together, and that ended up fostering a really close relationship. I started to think of Nick as a CEO the first time I met him. So at our first, breakfast or lunch meeting, it was clear to me that he was just a really special leader and somebody that if I ever had the chance to work with, I would jump at that opportunity.
I remember the first time Roger told me about the company that's now called Gainsight very well. I was happened to be working out at a 24-hour fitness in Sunnyvale. Just finished my workout, was in the parking lot, get a cell phone call from Roger, who at that time I'd gotten to know very well through this YPO group, the CEO group. And Roger calls me and tells me, hey, Nick, I got to tell you about the CEO opportunity. I'm like, oh, it's great. Is this one of the late stage companies you guys invested in? Is this about to go public? He's like, well, it's about a dozen employees. I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, well, I'll listen to you because you're a good guy. And then he says, and it's called JBara Software, which, by the way, very unique name, but definitely never heard of it before. So at this point, I was like, Roger, I probably couldn't be less interested, but I respect you as a friend. Tell me what they do. And then he described what JBara's vision, our two founders, Jim and Sridhar's vision was, which is, essentially as business moved to more subscription and recurring revenue, it's not just about acquiring customers, it's about keeping them and growing them over time. And Roger described that to me, and I had this light bulb moment where I was like, wow, that's the exact problem I had faced in my last business. We had systems for driving sales and marketing and building products and billing customers, but for managing our customers and making sure they stayed with us and grew, it was a spreadsheet. And so in that 24-hour videos, I was kind of pre-sold, if I was totally honest. I went through the process of meeting the founders, really connected with them, saw the product, but it was that call that kind of got me, because I just kind of fell in love with the vision and trusted kind of what you were working on.
I remember when we were talking about, the opportunity of working together, and would that change our friendship, and would that change the dynamic? And I remember a dinner that we had on University Avenue. I think it was at Joya, actually.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it was the opportunity for us to say, look, we're about to get married, and this is going to fundamentally change the dynamics of how we, how we coexist as friends, and introducing this new relationship as business partners. And I remember a couple of times in the dinner being, trying to communicate, I guess at the time, my, on the one hand, excitement, but also potential fear that it may change our relationship. And the way I ultimately reconciled it is I just have so much respect for Nick and who he is as a leader that I ultimately said, look, a lot of cases, I'm just going to default to you. I'm going to defer to your perspective, and that because I trust you, and because ultimately, I also don't want to disrupt our friendship, and I valued it so much that I didn't want it to in any way be impacted. But for me, it's been literally one of the most rewarding, not only just friendships, but also just business relationships in my life.
I actually felt the same kind of mix of enthusiasm and kind of a little bit of anxiety about how this would all play out. It's been interesting for me too. I think it's almost like just a microcosm of a larger thing, which is, as you have a longer career, and in places like Silicon Valley that are highly connected together, it's hard to separate completely your relationships on a personal side from your work, because they always end up intersecting together. Sure. We've kind of done a good job of keeping the worlds a little bit separate too. I think we've got the personal relationship and the work relationship, and you kind of try to keep them a little separate as well. But I agree with you, it's kind of definitely developed our relationship overall, and kind of, I think, built a better business and a better friendship in the process. And then I think the most powerful interactions are usually Sunday night at 10 p.m. when I'm like, I've got something to deal with this week, and Roger, I'd love to get your advice, whether it's something related to employees or investors or customers. And I can't count the number of Sunday night 10 p.m. calls that we've had, which have been very helpful for us.
Those are actually the most enjoyable for me as well, where it's the unscripted, but always inevitable events that come up as a company is, navigating, the journey that they go through, as you're not only building a company, but defining an industry. And so you never really know what's going to pop up. And so for me, it's an honor just to, be on the receiving end of the phone call and to try and play some small role in helping you navigate through some of those challenges.